Yeah, I mean, on one hand, when you say a number like 2 decades, like 20 years, it seems like that's insane, like that anyone could do anything for that long. It seems like a crazy number when you say it out loud, but at the same time, it all seems so natural. Like there was never a time where you were like, I don't know, this is getting old, or this has been a long time. It's just one of those things like the years just start piling on until you're like, oh, it's been 20 years. And you look back and it's, when it's all enjoyable with somebody, you're like, that's, time flies when you're having fun kind of thing.
Gary's the one that got me into BMX. We grew up together from the very beginning, and Gary was pretty much always good at BMX. He was always a good rider. He was always progressing, always doing things like that were, you know, I wouldn't ride with him for 2 days and I'd come back and he'd have like a new trick or two. Really, I can thank / blame Gary for where I am in the industry, because he's part of the reason that I like picked up a camera, you know, like he's the reason that, you know, I was involved in BMX anyways because he got me into riding, but he's also the reason that I picked up a camera because he was always so good.
I saw Gary riding 2002 or 2003. Liked his spunk, charisma, always eager. Gary was a rad kid. When I first sponsored him, I think I gave him 10 pair of shoes, 40 t-shirts, and I think $800 cash. To be honest with you, he didn't really care about money back then. He just wanted to ride his bike. I think it was a year after that, or maybe that era, when he flew to Florida and then had to ride his bike 50 miles or 40 miles to the contest.
We're all at the contest and this kid shows up ripping. Like, I don't think I've ever heard him before. I don't think a lot of people heard of him before, but he was on a Dirt Brothers and he was absolutely killing it. And like, then later that day we heard that he rode 20 damn miles from the airport to the contest, which is goddamn insane.
There's a Dirt Bros video and he rode from like a Florida airport with his bike bag like super far. It was before like we had cell phones and we could be like, hey dude, like where you at? And just picked his bike up, built it, and pedaled it to wherever he was going.
Just this unheard of kid that pedaled from the airport to the contest. And
didn't have a ride from the airport, so I took it upon myself to ride my bike about 40 miles. Made it to the contest and it's going good.
And you did this in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I left the airport about 6 o'clock. The buses shut down, so decided to take it upon myself to ride to the park, and it ended up being pretty good.
So as a toll road, did you have to pay the tolls?
No, I just kind of went by. The guy looked at me kind of funny, but he didn't say anything, so I just kept on going through. I have 2 axles, but no money.
You rode 6 hours for a 75-second run. Was it worth it?
Oh yeah. I like beating myself up.
Awesome, I'm right there with you.
Right there is when I knew I had a great guy, great kid on the Vans team.
The first trip I went on with Gary Young was pretty odd. So at the time, Vic Murphy was on the team and we were going to England for the Backyard Jam. I guess at the last minute, for some reason, Vic couldn't come, so he sent somebody in his place, which is odd as a pro rider to just be like, hey, take this guy instead, he's good too. And we're like, what? Like, you can't do that. But it was great because that rider was Gary Young. He sent Gary Young in his place. I think Gary was 18 at the time, around that. He was like virtually, I'd say, unknown to a certain degree, and then he just blew everybody's minds at the Backyard Jam. And he rode Gary Young style, if you can imagine Gary Young style, but still like an 18-year-old. It was wild, it was great. His helmet, at that time, that was when his helmet didn't fit and always like would slosh around on his head and he'd have to move it like halfway in a run. And it was just funny because I feel like that was Gary's move for a couple years, is that weirdly odd-sized helmet that never fit him right. It was kismet or something like that, because everything after that was awesome. Like, we loved Gary, Gary was awesome. Like, he was basically on the team after that trip.
So Dirt Bros, I think, was kind of winding down. And Gary was like the poster child, obviously. Like, Gary was like, you know, we lived in that house and Gary's on the front cover, Scher's on the back cover, Gary's on this next cover. It was like such a cool time where Gary was like literally exploding.
I was watching props, and for whatever reason there's Metro Jam highlights, and I remember multiple Gary Young clips in that, and it was head down, power wheelie, pedaling across a flat bottom, and as a racer I saw that and from that moment, I was like, that's my guy for sure.
At the moment he dropped in and just started pedaling, I was like, all right, I can get down with this dude.
The Metro Jams and the Backyard Jam, really, they're just perfect forums for someone like Gary Young to show everything that he can do. When Gary rode those contests, he'd be the one opening the throttle all the time. Like as soon as he entered the course, like he was pedaling towards something as fast as he could to get it going.
Those early Metro Jams and some of those early, like the Backyard and stuff, he really did some stuff that like people weren't messing with. Put his name on the map and like, he won't get off the map.
I think it was Metro Jam in person. Got to see him ride. He was on that beige and orange frame at the time. I remember it was just like classic Gary tables, just running it, and then yeah, that was like kind of the first memory. Was just seeing him do a tabletop. Yeah.
Gary Young tabletop is like textbook tabletop. There's inverts and there's tabletops, and his is textbook tabletop. Bars completely perfectly 90, knee over the top tube, turn, and then the look.
It's got that BMX roots flavor of the tabletop that I would see down at Sheep Hills a lot whenever I was a kid on my little race bike and stuff.
The tabletops, whenever you just say that, I think of the one in fucking Shanghai, that 270 tape over the hip in the Odyssey video where you're looking at the fucking camera for like 10 seconds, it seems like. No matter how dumb and young you were like that, right? That's how you do one of those.
It's just lay it flat, look over, and just hold it for a few pumps. It's like, it's not just a quick snap, it's hold that bitch until you're coming back down.
Turn the bars and kind of grip it and rip it, kind of quick release, kind of like aggressive, stick it in your face and fucking mace you, you know? Like, yeah, like the awesome 80s, like, yeah.
90s, kind of, you know, big movie style, kind of, yeah, it's not easy to do that.
Gary Young, being from San Diego and coming out of that Dirt Brothers scene, would have that classic tabletop style. It never looks like he's trying to push it over flat, never looks like he's trying to go for some trendy new looking invert. Like it's just, boom, flat as a pancake. It's just classic.
Gary's drop the hammer part to me was just like, I've seen that part like 200, 300 times or something crazy. So that's my Gary Young like fanboy moment, is drop the hammer for sure. But the well-roundedness of that part was highly motivating to me. He was whipping the flat and drop the hammer, and then 180 whipping the flat, and that was way ahead of its time. And then still doing like Gary Young lines at skate parks and crazy gaps, and just, that's a badass video part.
Gary's part drop the hammer was unbelievable. This goofy little guy from San Diego that's about to just drop, like, doesn't really cuss, doesn't really say anything, and he's about to just smash everyone in the industry real quick. I think it's sometimes hard to like realize like how good someone is when they're not like in your face about it. And not that Gary, or not that everyone is, but some people you're like, that guy looks like a superstar. Gary just sort of is your door next door guy that's like, has like a bunch of medals in his house from all these wins, and he's just like, hey y'all, just dropping the kids off, and then I'm gonna go jump over this pipe in the ditch real quick. I'll see you at 4.
His props bio too is crazy. He's had so many video parts. Me and Joey Cos were like looking for a spot that he rode not too long ago to see where it was, and we just like couldn't find the spot, but it was like so much fun. We watched like 10 Gary Young parts and we're just like, oh my God, dude, this guy has like thousands of crazy clips. Like,
What I enjoy most about Gary's riding is his ability to adapt to things. You know, if it's a brand new park for him or if it's a street spot, he can always squeeze something out of the spot that is unique to him. And even if it's like, you know, everybody thinks of him as like a transition rider, but he really is an all-around rider.
It doesn't matter what he touches, he's just like, he just completely redefines it, you know? Like he's, and you think he's a park rider, and then he just does the same thing with street, and you're like, oh, you're a street rider. Oh wait, then he just rides everything, you know. Then he rides trails, and you're like, oh, you're a trails rider, you know, like.
He can ride street, he can ride park, he can ride pools, he can ride, you know, mega ramp. Like he's actually ridden mega ramp, which is crazy.
But like my generation, when I was a young kid going to Claremont, Gary was like the pro. Like
You know, did you see what Gary did at Metro Jam? Did you see what he did here and there? And then he would just come back to Claremont. It was like, dude, that's the guy from the videos, you know? Like, even as a little kid, I just remember seeing how he would naturally ride the park and just knowing like that dude's pro. You could tell like he's different than everybody else. I would just idolize like the way he got to a park and just linked lines and gaps and just made it look so fun and like fluent and threw his tricks in between all that.
For a guy that rides as fast as he does and as high as he does, he still has those badass peg tricks that he links in. He finds these little tight bowl corners and these little tight transitions and gets pegs on it and holds speed.
But just watching him just pump around and just find the tightest corners and just getting all the speed and just finding the fastest lines. He doesn't even, like I think I saw that in one of his last edits, is that he doesn't even have to leave the ground without you being like, holy crap, that was amazing. It's like you can't just watch someone just pump around a bowl and be that impressed. But for some reason, like his flow is just like, it's on another level, like every aspect of it.
Fast, big, wild, tables, big, you know, smooth, stylish too, you know. Gary's stylish in his own right. Definitely has his own style for sure.
He still keeps up to date with like all the technical stuff. You can ride a bowl like no one else. He's literally just Mr. Everything. I would say in a contest, he's a fucking madman, just wild all over the place, but still dialed. And then catching him at a session for the first time, just like butter, like just literally air, like the air we're breathing in right now. That's how smooth it is.
He always finds those lines, just like lay the rubber, like the classic Gary Young, like bulldog, do the little power wheelie on the flat ground, and like.
He's like fireworks, you know? He's like one of those fireworks that's just so little and cute, and you're like, oh, and then it's just like, a blast, and then you're just like, whoa, where'd that come from, man? Just Gary Young, he knows how to grip them and rip them and hold them and fold them.
Gary's riding style is so different than his personality.
Maybe the nicest guy I've ever met.
In Gary's head, he's not Gary Young, the super pro. He's just, I'm Gary, I'm riding Claremont, I'm gonna try this trick with you. Like,
doesn't really stop smiling, always is happy, doesn't ever say anything negative.
Doesn't really judge, doesn't really talk much trash at all. But he's a super nice guy and he's really cool, and then he just shreds and lets his riding speak for itself.
He's not only like just a super nice family guy, but he just like always has everybody's best interest kind of before himself.
Like if someone's trying to clip and they get a flat, he's running to you with a fucking tube. Like he's that dude.
Gary's just himself. He keeps himself. He doesn't really talk shit about other riders. He just goes out there and does the job he's supposed to do. BMX is his life. He works 9 to 5 on his bike, and you know, when the job's over, he's with his family, riding his bikes with his kids. And
I mean, a session with Gary is always so fun. Like, always brings such good positivity, like vibes to the bowl. And
anytime we have a session, the vibe is always good, and he's always just stoked to ride. Like, purely just fucking loves it still. So,
I mean, it's going on probably 2 decades now, and he's still ripping and, I mean, placing and doing it with the best of them. So you rule, Gary. Keep going, man. You're killing it still and showing them where we came from.
2 decades in on Odyssey, I'm coming for you. That's the main goal. Congratulations, what a fucking feat this is. To keep going. We're still here. We're going. And you're still here. And you're holding it down. Thank you for the motivation.
Man, I just think longevity, you know, like that's a hard one to pull off and stay current with the times and be able to adapt and still be respected and have younger kids like not think you're an old clown or something, you know, and he's doing it, man. It's amazing, and there's no sign of slowing down for him. Shoot, I don't know how he eats or whatever, but I know he doesn't drink and everything, and he's probably up early and just, you know, healthy lifestyle, you know, so it's like the Tom Brady of BMX, you know.
I have no idea. I literally don't know how he still does what he does. I think he just fucking loves BMX too much, and he just can't not always ride and always ride to his fullest.
Gary, thank you for being someone I've looked up to for, you know, the entire time I've been a professional bike rider, and I've been lucky to share 2 teams with you for a long, long time. It means more to me than you'll ever know. Thank you for giving me someone to look up to and also, you know, whether it's bike riding or being a dad. And yeah, I consider you one of my closest and best friends. And you know, congrats on 20 years. You are still somehow about to put out a part that's going to be completely full of bangers. And yeah, congratulations.
Okay, one time we were in San Francisco filming for Grow Up. I see Gary fall in a bush and everyone's kind of like, oh, Gary fell in the bush, haha. You know, like when someone falls in a bush, it's kind of funny. But then he just didn't move and he was just stuck there. And I rode over and I was like, what the fuck's going on? And Gary's just laying in the bush. He's like, the stick is in my arm. Apparently somebody had trimmed the bushes.
Lands shoves his arm into a plant and he's stuck in the bush. I mean, like literally stuck. And he's yelling at us all like, I can't move, I got a stick in my arm, like I'm stuck. And we all over there were looking and I'm like, oh my God, like he literally has a stick in his arm.
All the sticks had like sharp angles on them. And when he fell in, it just got like lodged in his forearm.
There's some guys cutting bushes in the park, like city workers. And we go and ask one of the city workers to come over and cut him out of the bush. His arm's stuck. So he comes over with his thing, chops the plant out. Gary now just has a stick sticking out of his arm.
And then instead of making someone take him to the hospital, he's like, I'll take an Uber. So we took an Uber to the emergency room while he's impaled on a tree, a piece of a tree. It was, oh my God.
They don't know what to do in the hospital. They're like, we don't know, like, is this hit something important? Has this not? It's like a kind of a big deal. I mean, the stick's like, I mean, it's this big. It's as big as my finger. It's a big stick. What a wild, you know, just a weird happening. Gary had a smile on his face the whole time, handled it like a champ, and like, I don't know, still to this day of like one of the weirdest, funniest, random things that happened on a bike trip. So Gary, you know, really stuck it to him.